welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Hex.
What are you doing, Hex?
I'm live tweeting. I thought I'd live tweet my intro as well.
Oh yes, I'm Barjo. We live tweet almost every week, so feel free to join us at #GGTV and talk about games with us, and while we watch us talk about games. Coming up on the show this week...
It's a bit of a frag fest this episode, firstly set in the icy setting of Lost Planet 2.
Frosty! And then in the scorching desert heat of Red Dead Redemption.
Sandy. And in a backwards compatible, we'll be looking at the work of Sensible Software, who produced many of the classics of the 2D gaming era from the 80s and early 90s. But first, can you guess the game for this week?
Use time, Hex.
It's the end of an era in the video game industry, with games developer Midway finally entering into liquidation. The company that gave the world Mortal Kombat, Spy Hunter, Rampage and NBA Jam has been bankrupt since early 2009. But fans of Midway's games need not despair. Most of the company's assets were snapped up by Warner Brothers, and the House of Bugs Bunny will be bringing out an all-new Mortal Kombat fighting game in the near future. The regulatory push for stricter game censorship in Germany has collapsed. The initiative was sparked in March last year when a disturbed 17-year-old went on a shooting spree, killing 15 people. Noting that the killer owned a copy of Far Cry 2, the interior ministers of Germany's 16 states acted as one to pressure the federal government into making the creation, distribution and sale of violent games a criminal offence. If enacted, the changes to the criminal code would have outlawed several prominent developers, including Crytek, the creators of Crysis. A petition with over 70,000 signatures helped the German government change its mind. The German authorities will instead introduce measures to better educate consumers about the existing rating system. The mastermind behind the Xbox consoles and Zune media player Jay Allard has reportedly had a falling out with Microsoft management. The point of contention seems to be the decision to terminate Allard's most recent hardware project, the Courier. The Courier was to have been a multimedia smart tablet similar to the iPad, but it seems that Microsoft heavies Steve Ballmer and co. thought the Courier just didn't have legs. Now it looks like Allard is the one walking, with the tech wizard going on an indefinite sabbatical from the company. Entrepreneur and Virgin founder Richard Branson will reportedly be attending this year's E3 gaming convention to personally announce a new Virgin-branded gaming service. While details are scarce, it is believed that the serial entrepreneur's new venture will be an online distribution service, not unlike Steam. This wouldn't be Branson's first foray into the world of gaming. The prominent businessman founded the original Virgin Games in 1984. The first ever Ivor Novello Award for a video game score has been awarded to composer Joris de Man for his work on Killzone 2. The Ivors have been presented annually in London since 1955 by the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers and Authors, and only just this year has introduced a category for video game music.
Good game!
Lost Planet came out way back in 2006, and it had its moments. It was quite well received critically.
And now it's time for Lost Planet 2, or Lost Planet Squared.
It is year 12 of the after-trial era. Half a century since colonization began on the planet of EDM-3.
You'll fight it out on the planet of Eden-3, right in the middle of a civil war, with some giant beasts and snow pirates thrown into the mix. There are more locations in the sequel, seas and jungles, and even space, Barjo.
I do like a bit of space, Hex. The monsters are more beautifully designed this time around, and they're huge, and also the environments are quite detailed. By firing at monster weak points, you can eventually take them down, and even now and then jump inside their intestines and fight them from the inside. Messy.
They do take a lot of gun spam before they go down, though. Mostly watching them prance about is interesting enough to get you through it. Although the battles, if they were 1/4 as long, they'd be way more fun.
Yeah.
When you're not firing at beastie gonads, you'll be making your way through some pretty decent levels, activating power nodes and generators until you get to the next chapter.
There's a big focus on co-op here, and you can play this game with 3 other players, but that's where it starts to fall apart a little bit. For a start, the offline AI of your companions is rubbish. They don't heal themselves enough, and the enemies themselves, the AI there is terrible too. They don't notice you sometimes, and they're not really fun to engage. But going online creates a whole bunch of new problems. For a start, you have to play it on easy because your whole team share kind of a universal health bar called the battle gauge, and every time you die, this depletes. This means just one noob in your match and it's all over. And I mean properly over. You don't go back to a checkpoint, you go back to the start of the mission. What?
Yeah, that makes no sense. I mean, the whole lobby system is inelegant in general. You can't join a match that's already going on without sitting in a lobby screen for 20 minutes until the game decides to let you in. There's no drop-in, drop-out system like there is in all other co-op games like this, and if you haven't played the mission that's going on, then you can't join it.
Yeah, I thought we were past all this crap years ago. Just let me play with my friends. Does it really matter if they're a chapter or even a checkpoint ahead of me? The game isn't good enough for me to want to replay levels, so who's going to sit down with their friends and play it all in one sitting from one point to the end? No one. That too. Multiplayer does save some grace though. There's some interesting maps, especially in space. And when you start mucking around with the Versus or Vital Suit mechs, you can really start having some fun. Some of these are melee, but most have a variety of weapons, including the biggest shotgun on Earth. And you can detach these to take them on foot, or attach 2 for mech dual action. I think the most fun is in these multiplayer deathmatch modes, Hex, but it just takes way too long to unlock anything, and all the time I found myself just staring at menus going, just tell me what you want me to do.
Yeah, the whole game presentation is lacking in general, but the thing that makes it a deal breaker for me was the clunky controls. And the game makes you halt all the time to do anything, like throwing a grenade, for example. You can't throw one on the run or while in midair, and it was just unresponsive in general. I mean, this is third-person shooter 101 stuff. I just can't decide why they chose to design the combat like this.
Yeah, and the grapple is pretty rubbish too. You can't grapple in midair, and the distance just isn't long enough. And why not at least extend it in multiplayer deathmatch, where you don't have to worry about funneling the main character down a specific corridor? It's just multiplayer. Let me have some fun with it. I love the look of the game, especially the mechs and the spacesuits and the beautiful creatures, but altogether it's just a bit of a shambles. I'm giving it 6 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Well, I hated it. The game just isn't fun enough to look past all those interface problems. Plus, how I move in a game is so important that to get this wrong with all the inspiration to draw from out there is an epic fail. I'm giving it 5.
In fact, I agree with you so much, I'm going to retract my 6 and make it a 5.5. I can do that if I want to.
Good game.
Today, game developers usually have dozens, even hundreds of employees. But in the 80s and early 90s, it was possible for small groups of dedicated coders to make games that shook the world. In their structure and life cycle, these elite teams were less like companies and more like rock bands.
One of the most mercurial outfits of this period was Sensible Software, Sensi for short, the team that gave the world the sublime Sensible Soccer. Believe it or not, Sensi was a rock band first and a developer second. Founders John Jovial Jops Hare and Chris Cuddly Cricks Yates only got into games because they weren't making enough money from their band, Hamsterfish.
Sensi burst onto the Commodore 64 scene with the scrolling shooter Parallax, a fusion of top-down shooter and action-adventure that pushed the graphics of the C64 beyond its limits. For the music in their early releases, Hare and Yates wisely tapped the talents of Martin Galway, arguably the finest composer ever to work on the Commodore 64. He was able to coax incredible psychedelic space sounds from the crude waveforms of the SID synthesizer chip.
The score to Parallax was a symphonic odyssey, but Galway really hit his stride with a title that Zap64 magazine dubbed the Game of the Decade, Whizball. Whizball was a highly innovative take on the scrolling shooter genre. Not only for its unique upgrade path, it was also one of the first games to feature a co-op play mode that was ideal for noobified friends. While Player 1 controlled the whiz in his bouncing green ball, Player 2 would control the orb that his loyal feline companion jetted about in, the Catalite. The Catalite came with 9 lives, making it perfect for newcomers, still coming to grips with the Wiz's bizarre mission to collect floating globs of paint and restore colour to the universe.
But the sequel was weirder still. It seems that Wiz and his ball got intimate and had a child, the Wiz Kid. In Wiz Kid, you controlled a little fellow with a detachable green spherical head on a mission to rescue his dad and the 8 kittens of his cat, Nifter. Wiz Kid was a surreal mashup of genres: action, adventure, puzzle, and bat and ball brick smashing. In the early 90s, Sensible Software sparked controversy in the media with the bloodthirsty action game Cannon Fodder. Many took offense to the use of Remembrance Day poppies in the title screen of a game where you could detonate baby seals and juggle dead bodies indefinitely by hosing them with machine gun fire.
While Cannon Fodder had many elements common to real-time strategy games, Sensible Software put its definitive stamp on the genre with games like Megalomania. Like in Populous, you controlled a god, reaching down and meddling with the affairs of one of the countless Earth-like orbs dotting the cosmos. You could build and upgrade buildings and launch stronger attacks as you advanced through historical eras. A game of extensive customization and technical progression, Megalomania went on sale in '91, years before Command & Conquer or Age of Empires would season the same ideas.
Another high-concept innovation from the developer was the shoot-'em-up construction kit. It let players design their own Galaga-style arcade games, giving them power to edit the bitmaps, the attack patterns, and even the audio. Since the kit could output these games as executable files, homespun creations became a fixture on Game Magazine cover discs.
In terms of mainstream success, Sensible Software's high watermark was Sensible Soccer. A blockbuster of the 16-bit era, it was released not only for the Amiga, ST, Mega Drive and SNES, but for systems as obscure as the CD32 and Acorn Archimedes.
The zoomed-out tactical view of Sensible Soccer was unique, and its streamlined, accessible playstyle enraptured soccer fans worldwide. Its sequel, Sensible World of Soccer, was the first soccer sim to introduce team management and career modes, and is considered in some circles to be the finest game ever made for the Amiga.
It also turned out to be the final game of note for the company. Sensible Software's final production, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, turned out to be pure vaporware after languishing in production hell for years.
Yes, just as Sensible Software reached the height of fame and influence, its winning streak came to an end. The world moved on from the 16-bit era, and Sensible Software was bought out by Codemasters in 1999.
But maybe the story is not quite over, as Sensi founder John Hare is back in a band and performing music from his old games. How about that?
Indeed.
Good game.
If I wasn't a game developer, then I most likely would be a muralist. I grew up in Mexico and I saw a lot of these great murals by Diego Rivera, and always was interested in art and drawing and painting. So yeah, I would have loved to, to maybe create murals like that so that people can enjoy them and see them.
If I wasn't a game developer, I know this is a bit odd, but I would have liked to made like street signs of be like people kind of like walking across the street, or don't fall off the cliff, or this is the men's bathroom and women's bathroom. The triangle on the bottom of a stick figure represents a woman. It's kind of interesting to see like how different cultures and different people from around the world can always like view a sign like that and still like gather like the information that they need. So I don't know, and I'm not that great of an artist, so I could have done it.
Good game.
Well, Hex, I think it's time to saddle up for the Red Dead Redemption review.
Well, saddle up, partner.
It's a ticket.
Yahoo!
Come on.
You are John Marston, a lone gunman who wanders into town seeking one of his former gang members. After a rather unsuccessful first encounter, you then set about performing about 1 million favors for people around the land, stretching right across the border into Mexico and back again.
Mexico loves you.
She has a funny way of showing it.
Why don't you see if you can help him in his study of the native problem in this county? That's a good fellow.
The Wild West runs at a slower pace, and the story here is a real slow burn. Even 16, 17 hours in, you're still learning about John and his backstory and the reasons for doing what he's doing in the game. There's a high standard of character design, voice acting, and motion capture here, and the writing fits in with the times, and it's only when you bump into the Irish that your ears will start ringing with a cussin'.
You messed up properly this time, didn't you? You little paddy bastard. You thieving Mick. You got it all wrong, Welsh.
I didn't skip a single cutscene here, Hex.
Yeah, I think it's a step up in writing for this developer. I think maybe the setting inspired their team.
But I'll bet you can't ride, Mr. Marston.
I hate to take money from a lady, miss.
John's a likable character, but I think his motives are questionable at times. He likes to defend the innocent, but he's also portrayed as quite ruthless in cutscenes, so your feelings towards him often conflict. But mostly, he's trying to do right after a lifetime of doing wrong.
Yeah, he definitely does have that mean streak in him still, and the game does try to explain that. To an extent though, you do control how good and bad he is. By committing crimes or choosing to go the evil path, it'll affect your karma rating, similar to the system we saw in Fallout 3. This has real-world repercussions, and people will price goods accordingly and react to you differently, a bit like Fable 2.
Hello there, Mr. Marston, sir. How do you do, Mr. Marston?
They experimented with this a little in GTA 4 with those do I shoot him or do I let him go kind of moments, but it's evolved into a much more interesting thing here, and I liked it a lot.
Just give me the deed, old man.
Yeah, me too. It's a shame you don't always get to live with your choices, though. One false lasso or shooting the wrong guy will fail a mission, even if you work out early that someone is going to double-cross you. I guess it's so you don't miss out on anything plot-wise, which would be a shame because the campaign missions are mostly entertaining. From the long ride out where conversations will change each time you retry so you don't get bored, to the aftermath where you'll mop up and loot the dead.
Along with excellent sound design and ambience, it's just a joy to be in this truly beautiful world, especially with my lovely, lovely horse. I do love my horsey, Hex.
As the titled sun lays his weary head down, it's time to bed down for another day. All the cattle are sleeping.
Bajo.
Yeah. I always felt a little bit bad when he accidentally took a hit in battle. Oh, but then you just skin him and sell his skin at the shops for cash.
This is dirty.
So, it's alright.
I think your motives are a bit conflicting here, Bajo. But yes, the virtual horsies handle like a virtual horse should. They even follow roads and paths and stop themselves from falling off cliffs. Mostly.
You can also hold down your run button and the horse will automatically go the same speed as your companion. And you can call up your horse at any time. It's thrilling running and leaping on when you need to get away fast. The land itself has a wide open draw distance that'll make you pull over more than once just to have a look. Beams of sunlight and shadows all work together in a noticeably complex way, and the dust and what little water there is in the desert just looks amazing. It's so impressive, Hex.
Yeah, I mean, it's much like how we felt when playing GTA 4 for the first time. You know, it's this incredibly massive and detailed world that streams and loads without a beat. You get the idea that because horses don't move as fast as sports cars do, that they've been able to pack in a bit of extra detail into the design.
Put some more graphics in it.
More graphics.
There's so much to see, and even towards the end of the single-player campaign, you still feel like, I haven't seen everything. And I think Rockstar have really learned some lessons about how to structure a campaign in an open-world game, because you can rely on almost every second main campaign mission giving you something extra or having a twist on it, like giving you a new weapon or giving you a new ability, upgrading your Deadeye, for example, which helps out in those messy firefights.
You also get rewarded for just riding about and exploring. Random encounters such as people being held up by bandits or drunk men attacking women pop up, but there's also quest chains out there with specific characters, and they're all marked on your map, so you don't get too bogged down trying to find or remember everything.
There you go.
It's fun watching a shopkeeper take revenge on a robber you've returned. Go on, kick him again.
Along with that, there's tons of addictive challenges to do, from hunting quests to collect missions, and heck, I just love being in a world that had so much wildlife in it, although those cougars seem to come out of nowhere.
You should try knifing a bear. You also earn cash from missions, and there's a big focus on collecting animal skins and parts. and pretty flowers to trade in for cash or hand in for certain quests. Then there's poker or blackjack or liar's dice, which you can play to your heart's content.
I liked all those, but horseshoe throwing is about as much fun as it sounds. Fortunately now there's a fast travel system. You can set up camp anywhere in a flat surface that's not in a settlement, and then go to anywhere in the map that you've already been to with a waypoint, or just jump straight into a town. I like that a lot, Hex.
All your classic Western weapons are there. Pistols and shotguns for short range, rifles and sniper rifles for long distance, plus the odd bit of dynamite. You can set 3 targeting modes for single player and multiplayer. Casual has more HP, plus if you fail a mission a bunch of times, it'll even ask you if you want to skip it. Expert doesn't have auto aim, but it can really come in handy, especially in those missions where you're on horseback or riding a train.
I liked Expert a lot more, Hex. It is a very different game and battles do take a lot longer, but it's just too hard when you're on a moving vehicle or on a train trying to take out all those goons in the time you have. You need to have that auto aim for there, so I found myself just clicking back between normal and Expert all the way through. It's a shame there wasn't a middle ground. The auto aim is very helpful, but I found because it was the easiest way to win, I was just spamming that auto lock in the general direction of the enemy, and it took a little bit of the fun out of it. I guess it does keep the action moving at a fast pace though. Just like in Grand Theft Auto 4, goons will grab their arms where you shoot them and hobble if you hit them in the legs, the hats will fly off and you can shoot the gun out of their hand, and I was very happy to hear that Wilhelm scream in there, Hex. Oh!
You hear that all the time online, it's awesome. In multiplayer, you work your way up the ranks, gaining XP from gang matches, capture the bags, free-for-all, and free roam challenges. This will let you unlock weapons, titles, characters, and mounts to use in free roam.
The trailers for multiplayer really make out that being in a posse with your friends will kind of look cool and organized like a classic movie gang, but really it looks more like this. But yeah, they really got free roam right this time, Hex. The posse system works well, and the leader can easily drag your team around into different game types and other free roams. The leader can set markers for others to follow on the map, and along with all the XP challenges, there's also strongholds for you to take down all over the place.
Yeah, I think they could have done a lot more with that. You know, more of those strongholds or wave modes, for example.
It was a strange choice not to let anyone even know that you could have an Expert force match until rank 15. If you do have a rank 15 member or higher, they can pull the rest of the posse into one of those rounds, but I just think a lot of people will go on and be thrown into all these auto-lock matches and then never bother again. It's a shame.
Especially with no custom games. Still, we loved the pre-game lobby. We could have a bit of a punch-up. Plus, our favourite pastime, kick and chase the goat. They're neat ideas, and in true Wild West style, every fight starts with a shootout.
Dutch's gang. Rebeldes. You. Draw your gun.
I think it's a more mature game than we're used to from Rockstar.
Yeah, I agree. Although it still frustrates me a little bit that I can't have the option of playing as an equally strong female character. And I know it's a bit silly to assume that you'll always have that option of playing as male or female, especially when story's involved. But gaming for me is immersive. It's fantasy and it's escapism, and I want to be able to put myself in that character's position and imagine myself there, and I can't do that when there's no female character for me to play. But at least you can play as miscellaneous women in the multiplayer. Thanks.
Misc women.
Red Dead Redemption isn't perfect, but it's close. The melee system may look good, but if any game needed a decent melee system, it's this one. And it's a shame they didn't take inspiration from Saints Row 2 or something.
Yeah, and now and then your horse will get stuck too and won't be able to find you, and it always seems to happen in the most important moment. Also, many of the multiplayer maps have way too much debris on the ground, so it's hard enough navigating your dude just through a small door, let alone having to step around barrels and crap on the ground. You know, even with all these little imperfections, I'm only noticing it because the rest of the game is so good. So I think I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 rubber chickens, Hex. It's a must-play game.
Well, Rockstar should be applauded for the coding behind this game. I mean, you'll barely notice the loading at all, and it's like they've really listened to what players really enjoyed and didn't enjoy from GTA 4. It's possible that the Wild West setting won't appeal to everyone, but, you know, it's so polished that I think it'll be hard not to lose yourself in this game for hours and hours. It's 9.5 from me.
The alternate reality game Bluebird is at the endgame stage, but there is still plenty to uncover, so, as they say, many brains make light work.
It's hands. Many hands make light work.
Right, well, get your hands over to the Dashboard Collective and join in.
But did you guess this week's game? It was Midtown Madness on the PC. This open-world racing game had its fair share of over-the-top thrills, but more interestingly, it was developed by Angel Studios, who would go on to be renamed Rockstar San Diego, the folk behind Red Dead Redemption.
And that brings us to the end of another episode, but we shall return with more next week at 8:30 p.m, only on ABC2.
We'll be reviewing the latest from RPG experts Obsidian Entertainment with the espionage RPG action of Alpha Protocol.
Plus, we take a look at the gamer's pile of shame, those games we never finish. We take a look at why we quit some games before the end.
And as gamers, most of us put gaming high in our list of desirable things to do. But when does too much gaming become a problem? Ajax revisits the issue of gaming addiction.
My longest session of playing WoW would probably be around 15 hours. With breaks for food.
Don't forget, you can download this or any other episode of Good Game from the site. Show them the site, Hex. Yeah, that's one. And we're pleased to say that from this week, the quality of the episode has actually almost doubled, but the file size remains about the same. Magix!
Well, it's not Magix, it's the guys that work behind ABC Online.
Magix is forbidden!
Till next time, gamers, Hex out.
It's forbidden!
Merlin! Magic is forbidden!